Hi, everybody. We're going to get started on Unit 5, Week 2 of our reading series. Today, we're focusing just on the Day 1 activities. Our lesson's going to look like this, very similar to what happens in our classroom. We're going to take a look at our objectives. We're going to look over this week's essential question and our new vocabulary that goes with our stories. We'll talk about the genre for this week. We'll talk about the phonics practice. We're going to skip this week's spelling list since we won't be taking a test, and then we'll wrap up our lesson with an exit slip. We have two main objectives for this lesson. The first one says, students will be able to identify the traits of tall tales. And students will be able to identify the open syllable in a word and read words with open syllables. Let's start with our essential question. The question for all of the stories from Unit 5, Week 2 are all connected to the question, what are some reasons that people moved west? So every time you read a story this week, it's going to be connected in some way with people who moved west many years ago. Here are some examples of people moving west. It says in the 1840s, thousands of people immigrated along the Oregon Trail. It went from Missouri to Oregon, and the main route for people heading west. In the 1930s, many families from Oklahoma made the move west. They were hoping to escape dust storms and poverty and start a new life in the West. The gold rush that began in 1849 attracted men from all over the world to California. Many stayed even if they didn't find the gold that they wanted. So you now have a couple of reasons why people moved west so many years ago. Let's take a look at the vocabulary that's going to come up in all of our stories this week. First, we have the word plunging. We watch the dog jump off the rock and go plunging into the lake. The next word is prospector. The prospector carefully panned for gold in the river. After that is the word scoffed. Tony's sister scoffed at his dream of becoming an Olympic athlete. And the last one on the screen is settlement. Pioneers built many settlements as they moved west. The next word is shrivel. Grapes left in the hot sun will eventually shrivel up and turn into raisins. Territories. The pioneers were awed by the size of the territories west of the Mississippi. Topple. The line of dominoes began to topple over slowly. And the last word, withered. A whole field of sunflowers withered and died during the drought. This next slide is all of the vocabulary words put together with their definitions. You can go back to this presentation and this particular slide anytime you need to see a definition for one of our vocabulary words. These vocabulary words are also assigned on the Connect Ed page for you to go back and look at them with pictures. It's called 5.2 Vocab Definitions. Now, before we move on in the lesson, I want you to do a little vocabulary practice. I want you to complete the 5.2 vocab practice assignment on the McGraw-Hill ConnectEd website. Remember, the best way to do that is through the Perry Township resource page. Then click on McGraw-Hill over to the right. The assignment that you are supposed to complete at this time is called 5.2 Vocab Practice. You can now pause this video, go to the McGraw-Hill site, and complete this assignment. Once you've completed the assignment and turned it in, come back to this video and restart it. All right, let's move on to the genre for this week's stories. The genre we're focusing on is called tall tale. But what are the traits of a tall tale? In our reading book, it describes a tall tale as having these characteristics. It says a tall tale is a type of folk tale. It features a larger than life hero and includes hyperbole. Hyperbole is the use of exaggeration for emphasis. Now let's turn to page 324 and read the story My Big Brother Johnny Caw. This story is in the tall tale genre. You can also have this story read to you on the ConnectEd McGraw-Hill website, but be sure to use the link on the Perry Township resource portal page to access the story. If you listen to the story or read the story yourself, be sure that as you're reading that you are looking for details that show why this story fits into the tall tale genre. You can pause your video now and read the story on your own or have it read to you. Once you're done with the story, you can come back and restart this video. If you notice clues or characteristics of the tall tale genre when you're reading, you can jot them down on a piece of paper to use on your exit slip at the end of this lesson. Now that you've read the story, My Big Brother Johnny Caw, let's talk about the evidence that you found that proves it's a tall tale. So, what evidence did you find in the text that proves that this is a tall tale? Let's talk about those details that you found. Then we'll go over a few pieces of evidence on the next few slides. If you said that this story has a larger than life hero and the hero is not meant to be realistic, you are correct. On page 325 in the text, it says, at 15, Johnny had grown so tall that when he stretched out in bed at night, his head hung out the door and his feet hung out the back door. That couldn't happen in real life. Nobody's really that big. That's an example of a larger than life hero. He's not meant to be realistic. Another characteristic that you might have pointed out that proves this story is a tall tale might be the use of hyperbole or exaggerations for the emphasis and humor. On page 325, it says, his head hung out the front door and his feet out the back door. Hens laid eggs between his toes. That could never really happen. Nobody could have a space between their toes big enough for a hen to lay an egg. But that seems kind of funny. They're trying to be funny and add humor into the story. They're exaggerating just how large Johnny Caw was. All right, now we're going to move on to the phonics section of this lesson. This section is all about open syllables within a word. Every syllable in a word has one vowel sound. The word can have lots of syllables, but every little syllable has to have one vowel sound. Let's look at the syllable B-O. It might just say the bo sound. When a syllable ends in a vowel, as in the B-O syllable, it is called an open syllable. Open syllables have a long vowel sound. Like in that syllable bow, the O makes the long O sound. We're going to identify the open syllables in each of these words. The first word is bonus. The red line indicates that this word has two syllables, bo-nus. The green circle indicates that the B-O syllable, bo, is the open syllable. That syllable ends with a vowel, and that vowel makes the long O sound. The next word is baby. That red line shows that this word has two syllables, bay-bee. On this word, you'll notice there are two green circles because each syllable is an open syllable. Bay ends with an A vowel and it has the long A sound. B, that's also an open syllable because Y, especially when it's at the end of a word, can be a vowel. That Y makes that long E sound. So both syllables in baby are considered open syllables. For your exit slip today, you are going to identify the open syllables in the words decent, native, focus, and total. You can write those down on a piece of paper right now if you would like. Before we wrap up our lesson, there's an assignment for you to complete on the McGraw-Hill website. This phonics practice assignment is called 5.2 Phonics Practice. The best way to get to this assignment is through the Perry Township resource page. Then click on the McGraw-Hill link on the right side of the page. Once you get there, find the 5.2 Phonics Practice assignment and complete it. Don't forget to submit your work when you're done. Pause your video now to do that assignment, then come back to it once you've turned your work in. All right, it's time to wrap up today's reading lesson. Do you remember our lesson objectives? The first objective said that students will be able to identify the traits of tall tales, and students will be able to identify the open syllable in a word and read words with open syllables. We're going to answer a few questions about both of those objectives at the bottom of today's Google form. Don't forget to submit your answers when you're all done with the assignment.